Hi, Dr. Nimrat.
Hi, Tanaya. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay. So, just want to quickly add a comment about who we are, what we're doing today, so that everybody who's joining in, we've already got a lot of viewers, can learn a little bit about the conversation we're having. My name is Tanaya. I'm also known as Dr. Cutress. I'm a medical doctor, and today we're here to talk with the fabulous Dr. Nimrat about a very, very sensitive and important topic. Today, we're talking about gender and sex-based violence that people face in our country, and just what are the different aspects surrounding it. Dr. Nimrat is going to give us the first-hand perspective of how she deals with it, when she deals with the actual survivors who come out with this. And we're going to discuss what are the different strategies that are implemented in our country and what are the different resources one can access in case this does happen. So, Dr. Nimrat, do you want to take a quick second to introduce your background or anything?
Sure, Tanaya, thank you so much. I am a medical doctor myself, and I've been with MSF for a few years now. And I've been leading this project, which is MSF's vertical project on sexual and gender based violence in the Northwest urban slum in Northwest Delhi called Jahamirpuri. And it's been almost 8 months that I've joined this project, but I think there's a lot to already talk about. And so when I talk about MSF, it's an international independent medical humanitarian organization. We provide medical assistance to people who are affected by conflicts, epidemics, disasters, or exclusions from healthcare. So our actions are very guided by medical ethics and the principles of impartiality, independence, and neutrality. So this is my background and this is about the organization. Now, if I can quickly go ahead and just tell you about this project that I lead, which is called Sexual and Gender-Based Violence. The name of the clinic is Umeed Ki Kiran, and it's been there for, it's in 6th year of its running, and we've seen in last 6 years around 2,500 survivors. We've tried to change their life, we've tried to provide them assistance. And it's a very basic, it's a standalone clinic for sexual and gender-based violence. So we provide medical care for the very obvious injuries that a survivor would have. We provide psychosocial support. We refer them to external agencies for legal assistance or for higher level of medical care. And all this that we do it with impartial approach. We do not judge, we do not discriminate. We have a very strong policy of medical confidentiality, which we maintain throughout our the what we do with this project, with this clinic as MSF, I think the objective of this project is to improve access to care for these survivors and access to medical care as well as psychological care. Because I think it's not just medical care that they need, right? It's not just obvious injuries that they need care for. It's about psychological trauma. It's about life after an event. So that is what we deal with, and this is the objective that this project has, to improve access to care for these survivors. That was a brief
So,
introduction.
thank you for doing that. I think it helps everybody to establish a basic idea about the kind of work you guys do. But since you're mentioning survivors, is this a very, very common problem? Is sexual and gender-based violence that is something that is rampant? Do we have any numbers on what kind of a magnitude this problem is, if any?
Yes, in fact, I mean, it's something that we do here, right? In our community, we hear a lot that there's been rape cases, there's been abuse. But I think if you look at figures, if you look at facts, globally, 1 in 14 women experience sexual violence by a non-partner. In India, 1 in 3 have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional violence by their intimate partner or spouse. And 28% of these survivors are both physical and emotional trauma. They sought help, and out of those 28%, only 1.3% of these survivors seek medical care. So yes, the numbers are very large, and the prevalence is it's humongous, right? But it's about how many of them actually reach out to seek care, how many of them actually reach out to talk about it. So that's the challenge that we face even in our project. I mean, we do a very active outreach. We have a very committed team of community health workers. We also have part-time ASHA workers in our team. So we do a lot of community outreach. You have to engage with the community to tell them that, listen, it is not just it is a problem. Like you seek healthcare for any other health issue, you would want to seek medical care for, even if you've been abused, harassed, or there's been a rape in your life. I mean, if you've experienced any sort of trauma related to your sex or your gender, for that matter, so we do that a lot. But yeah, like you asked me, the numbers are pretty much high, but it's just
I
about the
mean,
awareness actually being a healthcare issue.
the numbers are quite staggering because you mentioned 1 in 3 women in India have faced intimate partner violence. So if there was one more
Yes,
person in our conversation, statistically, one of us would have faced intimate partner violence. That is
you're right.
a staggering and horrifying number. And like you're mentioning that, people need other kinds of care as well. So this is something that we tend to see in just the way sexual or gender-based violence is reported. This is something we tend to see in the way people tend to respond to this, that, unless there's actual physical injury, you
Yes.
don't need to see someone. If you've been assaulted, if you've been molested, I'm not even going to go to the extent of a full violation and the extent of rape, but if you've just been molested or if you've had odd comments passed at you, there's such a plethora of effects that can come from it, and we tend not to address it. We tend to get stuck on, have are they physically hurt, are
Yes.
they injured in some
Yes.
way? So what are
Yes.
the steps one can take in a situation of this sort? What is the kind of care one needs if there's been any kind of assault or violation, um, beyond just your physical well-being?
Well, I think Tanaya, you mentioned a very important point. People always seek care when it's very obvious issue with them. Like if my stomach's hurting or if I have a bruise here, I would go seek help, right? But what we really need to talk about within our communities is also that it's not just physical injury that needs care. It's more about what goes on with the survivor after that event has happened. So, like for if I can just briefly tell you how we take care of a survivor in our clinic. So we have, like I said, we have a standalone clinic for sexual and gender-based violence. So when a survivor gets the courage to walk in and seek assistance, which let me tell you, it is not an easy job. It is not an easy job to go out and talk to people that, listen, we are providing free medication for malaria or we're providing free medication for TB. That's easy because people identify that as a healthcare, right? Healthcare issue. For this, it's not easy to even. So when we see a survivor walk in, I think that's an achievement for us, to be very honest, in the project, because you've taken that leap to come up and talk about it. So when the survivor walks in, I think the first thing that makes it very comfortable for that survivor, which I would really like to say that a survivor here at this point, what we understand in the community is always a female, but that's not right. Like we've also had stats that even male, they suffer sexual and gender-based violence. But in our project, in our community, that the project that we work for, in the community that we work for, I think the when the survivor walks in, they have a female-led team. They'll meet with a female healthcare professional who would, without asking the name, without asking their any detail, would just sit in the triage room with that person, talk to them, hear their story, analyze what is the immediate care that this person needs. Is it a medical intervention because we have a full-time doctor in the clinic? Is it a psychological intervention because we have counselors in the project? Or is it something else? Like when I say something else, most of the survivors, they come in that we would want to seek legal assistance. That is
Hmm.
something that we provide, but we do have referrals to these assistants. So
Hmm.
we have a full-time social worker in our team. The team is female led and it's very like survivor centric. I think this is one word that we keep repeating as an organization. We keep repeating even as a team that we are super survivor centric. When I say super survivor centric, I think it depends on what is the survivor that needs. What we mean when we say we are survivor centric is we keep the survivor in the center, and what is that person that needs. Do they need medical care? Do they need psychological care? We make them aware of what is it that they would really sort of get help from. So this is a little brief about the team that we work in and how the survivor could seek help and what is the help that we would provide to this person if they do walk in Umeed Ki Kiran.
There's something that somebody mentioned in the comments that sometimes you don't even know what is the help you need in a situation like this. And I feel that that's very true, that, there's just so many avenues that need being taken care of in a situation of this
Yes.
sort, that, you guys have all of these different aspects that you can assist in, which is wonderful. Just when you've been violated in that sort of way, you're just stuck. You don't know how to
Yeah.
go forward. So yeah, just somebody approaching the clinic is definitely a win. But like
Yes.
as you mentioned that, it's you have a women-led team, and more often than not it tends to be survivors who are women. um do people from other marginalized representations face this? Do how have you ever had children walk into your clinic, anything of that sort?
Yes, I mean in the vulnerable groups that we cater to, we have children, we have transgenders, we have female sex workers. So these are few vulnerable groups that we cater to, and I'm so proudly going to say that we also have transgender and a female sex worker part of our team. So they help us in talking about this topic in the community. They help us reaching out to their particular group as well. So we do work very closely with them, and like I said, it depends if we do have anybody walking from a vulnerable group. We do have this very dynamic team that knows how to talk and how to react. So I think it's a very wonderful setup, and whatever the survivor wants, whatever help the survivor needs. And when you said that somebody asked that, how do we even know how to approach? I think the first barrier that we need to really break is to talk about it in the community. We need to talk about it, and within our families, within our circles, we really need to talk about it, because until the time you don't talk, you won't be able to know if there is help around you. So that is also, I think that is the biggest challenge. When we talk about it in the community, we do get a lot of questions, but I think breaking that barrier, that I would say that there was about talking about it, and once you talk about it, how you are more aware of how what sort of help is around you, and what is your next step. Because we did a knowledge, attitude, and perception study within the community that we work in a couple of years back. It's a study that helped us a lot in approaching the survivors within the community. And one of the very surprising findings of the study was that the psychological consequences of sexual violence were perceived to be more severe for survivors who did not disclose their experience to others, and versus people who actually had families and friends to talk to. So
So
this was
just to
something
sort of break it
that was
down for the audience that's watching, if studies have shown that if somebody has been a victim or a survivor of any kind of sexual violence, if they have talked about it, the impact on their mental health has been less severe as compared to people who did not find the support or did not find the right sort of atmosphere or portal to talk about it. So I think it's very important to highlight how important it is to actually make this conversation not taboo and make this conversation something we all engage in. Why I sort of do want to especially emphasize on this is the children aspect. So do you want to talk a
yeah.
little bit about child sexual violence, Dr. Nimrat?
Yes, like I said, the stats with child abuse are very surprising. And children in per se are very vulnerable. You look at them as a vulnerable group, right? So I was saying with children, I think them being a vulnerable group, it's such the finding in the community is that most of their perpetrators that we see are people that they know of. The higher number is for people that they know of, and they are from their family, they are from their friends group. So I think, and they trust these people. So when they trust somebody like that, and they get into a very unkind event with that person, with that perpetrator, I think that really shatters them. So I think for to really address child abuse and to really take care of this vulnerable group, I think what I would really advise parents and want parents to be is that let's talk about sex education with our children. Let's listen to them. Let's make it like not just talking about menstrual hygiene or talking about sexual intercourse. Let's talk about good touch, bad touch. Let's talk about gestures that people could have, and let's give them a listening ear. I think that's something that they really need, and that is definitely something that we could work on and show respect to children when they talk to you about it, because like I said, they get abused by someone that they know. They get abused by someone that they live with at times, they are from the same household. So that becomes very difficult. And we do hear in the project also, I think we've had some very shattering stories from the child survivors. And, it's been from their families itself. And when in certain interviews, you get to know that when they wanted to talk about it, nobody believed them in the family.
Yeah.
So that is very shattering for a child who gets abused.
I think sort of adding on to that, I think the conversation also needs to go beyond good touch, bad touch, and it needs to go into if your child, like you mentioned, listen to your children, listen to the people around you. If the child is mentioning that they're not comfortable with somebody, we don't have to force them and be like, oh, beta, uncle se haath milao, oh, beta, jaake auntie ko hug karo. These, children are very perceptive to all of these things. And oftentimes they're ignored, or oftentimes they're not listened to when they are coming up with a very valid complaint. And like you mentioned, most often it is somebody who's known to them who is the perpetrator. So not just engaging children with this conversation, but engaging everybody in this conversation is so important. But say this does happen to somebody, are there any helpline numbers? Are there any places one can contact? Because I know the national helpline number for it's Shakti Shalini, which is 10920. So if somebody is facing any kind of sexual or gender-based violence, they can contact this quick number 10920. And I'll plug in some more numbers in the comments section of the IGTV itself. But is there some way they can contact you guys, get some help, get some access to resources? Because again, you mentioned there's so many things that need to be covered: the legalities, the mental health aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, just counseling, finding a support group. So how do they get in touch with Umeed Ki Kiran?
Yes, so we have our clinic is in Delhi, right? Our clinic is in the northwest part of Delhi. So you could reach out to us, but we are catering to, we very physically cater to the northwest region, but we have a website. Our clinic has a website by www.ukkdelhi.org. We will put it in the comments here as well. The toll-free number that you could reach out to, which is very confidential, and we take it's addressed by a healthcare professional, is 1-800-102-1075. I will put the details in the comment. So these are the two ways that you could reach out to us in Umeed Ki Kiran Clinic. If you are in Delhi NCR, we are there to provide you. Even our counselors also have phone counseling option. If you've been a survivor yourself, or if you know anybody in your community who really needs help, if there are I saw somebody writing in the comments that, how do parents react when they see their children having a very different kind of behavior. So if there's any sort of behavior within your family, friends, community, which you see somebody that is not, like being well, please reach out to us, and we would definitely be there to help. I really want the message to go from me as a project representative and organization from MSF is that we really need to start taking medical care and psychological care for SGBV survivors as an important thing. Like we take care of malaria, dengue, TB, and diabetes. We should also look at the fact that even sexual and gender-based violence is a healthcare issue. And be aware in your communities, within your group, and know where is the care that is available to you. And please make use of those. And talk about it and spread awareness is what I would really like to say.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing those resources. I hope somebody finds this useful, and I hope people find it useful. And honestly, my only hope for the future is that we make these conversations normalized and we engage in these conversations more, so that just less people face violence. It's a very heartbreaking thing that this happens. So thank you so much for all the wonderful work you do.